Marisol Reyes had always believed that love was enough. She believed it the way some people believe in the weather. Not because they can control it, but because it is simply always there, shaping everything around them. She believed it when she was 19 and fell for a boy who smiled like he had a secret. She believed it at 23, when she moved to Manila with 2 suitcases and a hotel job offer that paid just enough to survive. And she believed it most of all when she met Adrian Cruz, a sharp-eyed, ambitious man who told her on their 3rd date that she was the first person who had ever made him feel like the world was worth working for. She believed him. That was the beginning of everything, the love, the hope, and eventually, the heartbreak. Adrian was not a bad man. That was the part that made it harder. He was not cruel or cold. He was simply a man who had grown up watching his family struggle and had decided, somewhere deep inside himself, that he would never struggle the same way. He worked harder than anyone Marisol had ever known. He studied every detail of every deal his company handled. He stayed late, arrived early, and wore his exhaustion like a badge that proved he was going somewhere. For 3 years, Marisol loved him through all of it. She packed his lunch when he forgot to eat. She listened to him talk through problems at midnight. She cheered every promotion, every small win, every step forward, and he loved her back. She was sure of that. But love, she would later understand, is not always enough to compete with a man's hunger for something else entirely. The night Adrian ended things with her, he did not raise his voice. He did not use unkind words. He sat across from her at the small restaurant near her apartment, the same place where he had first held her hand across a table, and he told her, very calmly, that he was going to marry someone else. Her name was Cristina Villanueva. Her father owned one of the largest shipping companies in the country. Adrian had been offered a senior partnership in the business, the kind of opportunity that only comes once, the kind that changes a family's future for generations. Cristina was kind, he said. The arrangement was not forced. It was simply practical. You are the most genuine person I have ever known, he told Marisol. I want you to know that. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she folded her napkin neatly, placed it on the table, and said, "Thank you for dinner." She walked home alone. The city was loud around her, full of jeepneys and evening vendors, and people rushing in every direction, and somehow none of it touched her. She felt like she was walking inside a glass box. She could see everything, but nothing could reach her yet. That came later, alone in her apartment, where she cried until she had no more tears left, and then sat very still on her bathroom floor, thinking about nothing at all. She gave herself 3 days. 3 days to feel everything completely. And then, on the 4th morning, she got up, ironed her uniform, pinned her name tag straight, and went back to work. Because Marisol Reyes was the kind of woman who grieved fully, and then chose to keep going. It was, perhaps, the strongest thing about her, and the thing that most people in her life took for granted. 6 weeks passed. The sharp pain faded into something duller, like a bruise that had not fully healed. She was managing. Then the booking came in. An entire floor of the Grand Meridian Hotel was reserved under a corporate name she did not recognize. The general manager briefed the front desk staff personally. No questions about the guest, no photos, complete privacy at all times. Extra security had been arranged. The team was to be professional and discreet. Marisol treated every guest with the same standard of care, so she simply nodded and prepared the floor as instructed. The man who stepped out of the elevator that evening was not what she had imagined. She had expected someone louder, somehow, someone whose power announced itself. Instead, Rafael Montesio was quiet. He was tall, dressed simply in a dark suit without a tie, and he moved through the lobby with the kind of calm that did not ask for attention, but received it anyway. People stepped aside without quite knowing why. He approached the front desk. He gave her his name. She processed the check-in with her usual efficiency. He looked at her for a moment longer than was necessary, and then he said, "Thank you," and walked away. That was all. But over the following days, something quiet and unexpected began to happen. Rafael Montesio was not the kind of guest who demanded much, but he noticed things. He noticed that Marisol handled a difficult, rude guest on day 2 without raising her voice or losing her composure, simply redirecting the conversation until the guest's frustration ran out of fuel. He noticed the paperback tucked beneath the counter during slow hours. He noticed that she was always the last one at the desk and always the most prepared. On the second day, he stopped at the counter before dinner and asked, with no particular pressure in his voice, whether she would like to join him for a meal. She told him politely that she did not dine with guests. He said, "That's fair," and he left without pushing further. On the third day, there was a book on the counter when she arrived for her shift. It was the sequel to the novel she had been reading, the exact one, as though he had gone looking for it specifically. There was no note inside. On the fourth day, she thanked him for it. During a brief exchange near the elevator, he said he had simply noticed what she was reading. "Most people don't notice things like that," she said. "I know," he replied. "I think that says more about most people than it does about me." He checked out on the fifth day. He did not ask for her number. He did not make any promises. He simply thanked her for the hospitality and left. Marisol stood at the desk after he was gone and realized that, for the first time in weeks, she had spent several days thinking about something other than Adrian Cruz. 3 months went by. Life returned to its usual rhythm. She sent money home to her mother in Cebu every month. She read new books. She went out with coworkers on the occasional Friday. She was healing, slowly and without drama, the way most people heal, not in one bright moment, but in small, quiet steps. Then her cousin called with an invitation to a charity gala hosted by one of Manila's established families. Her cousin insisted it would be good for her, a chance to dress up, to remember that the world was large and full of people, and not just the inside of a hotel lobby. Marisol wore a simple dark green dress and arrived planning to stay for 1 hour. She saw him from across the room. Rafael Montesio was standing with a group of men in expensive suits, listening to someone speak, and yet the moment Marisol stepped through the entrance, he looked up, as though something had simply told him to, and their eyes met across the crowded hall. He excused himself from the group mid-sentence. His companions looked surprised. He walked directly toward her. "You are not behind a counter tonight," he said when he reached her. "No," she said, "and you are not a guest." "That's true." He smiled, and it changed his face entirely. "May I get you a drink?" They talked for 2 hours. He did not ask her about her past, and she did not ask him about his world. They both understood, without saying so, that there were things better left for later. Instead, they talked about books, about cities they had visited, about the kind of quiet that only happens in certain places, at certain times of day. He was nothing like she expected, serious but warm, careful with his words but genuinely interested in hers. When the evening ended, he asked if he could see her again. She said yes. What followed was a courtship, unlike anything Marisol had experienced before. Rafael was not a man who made large, dramatic gestures. He did not send enormous bouquets of flowers or book rooftop restaurants to impress her. He paid attention instead, and attention, she discovered, was rarer and more valuable than any gift. He remembered that she took her coffee without sugar. He remembered which author she had mentioned reading once in passing and sent her the complete collection quietly. He drove her to visit her mother in Cebu one weekend, without making a big occasion of it, simply because she had mentioned missing her. He told her the truth about himself early, that his life was complicated, that his world was not simple, that there were parts of it that were not easy to be close to. "I will never pretend to be something I am not," he told her one evening. "You deserve to know who I am before you decide anything." She looked at him across the table and thought about how different those words were from anything Adrian had ever said. Adrian had always made decisions for both of them, always calculated, always arranged. Rafael was doing something Adrian had never done. He was giving her the choice. She chose to stay. 4 months into their relationship, the universe offered up a moment that Marisol had not asked for and could not have scripted. Adrian Cruz walked into the Grand Meridian Hotel. He was polished now in a way that money creates. The right watch, the right shoes, the right haircut. He was alone. His wife was traveling abroad with her family. He saw Marisol behind the front desk and stopped. She processed his check-in with calm, practiced efficiency. Her hands did not shake. Her voice did not change. She handed him his key card and thanked him for choosing the hotel. He lingered. "You look well," he said. You look happy. I am, she replied. Are you seeing someone? She met his eyes. Yes. He opened his mouth, and at that exact moment, the elevator opened across the lobby. Raphael stepped out, unhurried, and his eyes found Marisol immediately, the way they always did, as though she was simply the first thing he looked for in any room. He walked over. He stood beside her. He did not make a show of anything. No dramatic gesture, no cold stare. He simply placed his hand lightly on the counter near hers, and looked at Adrian once with the quiet, complete indifference of a man who had nothing to prove. Ready? He said to Marisol. One moment, she said. She finished the check-in, stepped from behind the counter, and left with Raphael. Adrian stood in the lobby alone, holding his keycard, watching them go. The proposal happened on a Sunday morning. Not at a fancy location, not with a crowd watching. Raphael arrived at her apartment door with breakfast from the small place around the corner that she had mentioned exactly once, 5 months earlier. She was still in her robe. The morning was slow and unhurried. He set the food down on her kitchen table, turned to face her, and held a ring that was beautiful in the simplest way. Nothing excessive, nothing performative, just something real. I know my life is not easy, he said. I know what I am asking you to step into. But I have never been more certain of anything than I am of you. And I promise you, every single day, that you will never have to wonder if you made the right choice. Marisol looked at him. She thought, briefly, of a man who had once told her he could not afford to be in love. She thought, some people price everything in life, and some people understand what cannot be priced at all. Yes, she said. He slipped the ring onto her finger. Somewhere across the city, Adrian Cruz was checking out of his hotel room, returning to his wealthy, well-arranged life. It was, by most measures, a successful life. He had everything he had planned for. But on Sunday mornings, in the quiet before the day began, there was a particular kind of silence in his apartment that he could never quite explain. It was not loud enough to be called loneliness, but it was there. Marisol Reyes did not think about that silence. She was busy planning a small wedding, not lavish, just real, just theirs. On the morning of the ceremony, her mother called from Cebu, voice full of gentle worry. Are you sure, my love? His life is not ordinary. Marisol smiled at her reflection in the mirror. She thought about ordinary. She thought about what ordinary had cost her once. I know, Mama, she said softly. That is exactly why I said yes.